Nathanaël Cornet-Philippe, General Manager of CEDRE. CEDRE is the French National Association for Deconstruction, Depollution and Recycling. And I am here on behalf of EDA, the European Demolition Association, which is a non-profitable organization which tries to bring together all the stakeholders around demolition and recycling activities, meaning manufacturers, but also contractors, national association, as said, consulting, engineering companies, and a lot of them. So, Mrs. Fulvia Raffaelli, thank you very much for being here. Would you mind to introduce yourself and your role within the European Commission?
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here and to participate to the conference of the European Demolition Association. It has been a very good partner for the work we've done in the years on the construction demolition waste. I am Fulvia Raffaelli. I'm the head of the unit responsible for the construction ecosystem in the Industry Ministry at the European Commission. And we are the service responsible for the industrial side of the construction ecosystem across the entire life cycle. So from the manufacturing of the construction product to the building itself, so the contractors and the investors, and also for the recycling, for the demolition and recycling step afterwards. So it is my pleasure to be with you, and let's go into it.
I understand that you are very much concerned about circular economy. What is for you circular economy, and what is the European Commission perspective?
Circular economy is indeed a very important concept. It has been introduced for the first time in 2015 with the first Circular Economy Action Plan. It is the idea to keep a certain resource at this highest level for the longer period of time. It means that there are no waste anymore. Everything can be valorized and has a value in itself. Our planet has limited resources, and we need to be very careful in managing those resources. The European Union is supporting very ambitious objectives in terms of preservation of natural resources and reduction of the environmental impact. Now, the construction ecosystem is one with the bigger environmental impact. So circularity, increased awareness and implementation of circularity principle is key for that sector. The construction ecosystem has been identified in 2020 as one of the sectors with a bigger potential in terms of increased circularity. Today, 40% of the waste produced in Europe comes from the construction ecosystem, so a lot can be done in these areas. Part of my job is to support the industrial actors to uptake more and more circular approaches in their work.
The industry understands clearly this concept, and we have no objection to circular economy in principle. And very often we believe that we have been part of that system already, and that we have recycled everything that was consistent with the recovery streams and economical model. Where do you find the levers, and where do you see the breaks for deconstruction to go more into this circular economy principle?
For the time being, the circularity is a sort of voluntary approach. The many innovative companies have been uptaking circular models in an innovative way, looking at the recovery, remanufacturing, sometimes reselling of products. but it remains a bit of a niche market. The idea is really to generalize those practices and to actually make circular approaches mainstreamed across the entire value chain. To do so, we need to connect the dots to have the circularity approach take it up already at the time of the manufacturing the construction product, and then later on into the identification of the products to be used in renovation works or in construction works, and then later on, of course, to ensure that the quality of the waste construction or the waste construction and demolition waste is treated, is guaranteed, so that the resulting recycled material can be taken up again. This is not yet the practice. The regulation, and in particular the Waste Framework Directive, has fixed very ambitious target in terms of recovery of construction demolition waste. But for the time being, these are formulated in a very light way, so that they do not yet exert enough influence on the market. We are going to revise those objectives in 2025, and we're also working on another very important point, which is the definition of the criteria for the end of waste. Because it is important that the material is recycled, but it is also important that a market for that material exists, and actually uptake of the recycling material becomes a real practice. Not only because of the regulatory framework, but because indeed there is a value in going in that market. So we're doing our bit. Industry will have to also invest and integrate more this concept of circularity in their business plan.
You said that waste might not be anymore a waste, but might be a resource, or has to be considered as a resource. But for the time being, for demolition companies, waste is basically outside metals and some aggregates is basically a cost. How can we shift from being a cost to being a resource?
There will not be one single act that make that change, but some of different initiatives. Well, first of all, the cost of landfilling the waste will increase. And this is the result of the ambitions to go towards a zero landfilling of waste that is set into the Waste Framework Directive. So the cost of non-recovery, the waste will increase. Secondly, we also try to create a demand for the recycled material. On one side, by increasing the trust on the resulting materials, for instance, the work we've been doing together with EDA on the construction and demolition waste protocol, but also by creating the condition for more uptaking of recycled material in construction product. This is the work we're doing in the context of the construction product regulation. The proposal that we made in March, end of March, contains all the elements that would allow the definition of some minimum recycled content obligation, at least for some construction product. And in any case, it's aiming to make the use of recycled material more visible, for more transparent on the market, so that the sustainability of a certain construction product can be better valorized and recognized. This would also, this more clear and transparent declaration of the environmental performance of the construction product would also allow better design of possible incentives. In particular, thinking about green public procurement or inclusion of sustainability criteria in normal public procurement. So all these are elements that can indeed support the creation of a market for the recycled material, and then giving value to that material and moving from a cost to a possible resource. In addition, we also using more and more the carbon footprint as an element actually to drive the decision making across the entire construction value chain by also adding a relevant, let's say, carbon foot value to the construction product and then later on to the building itself would also allow to recognize and to make it more visible the sustainable value of a certain product, therefore creating the condition for more recycling.
More recycling means probably more sorting out or better sorting out of wastes, which might lead to no more demolition but selective deconstruction. What is your view on this selective deconstruction? Should it be systematic? Should it be related to what has to be recovered afterwards? How do you see this?
Well, I'm far from being an expert, so you are more on the ground. But yes, definitely the selective deconstruction, and in particularly even a step before, so the audit pre-demolition, so that allows also to identify if a certain building do contain relevant materials that needs to be selected and taken away separately from the rest of the waste. These are very important approach that can indeed result in more higher quality of the materials that results from a demolition. As going in this direction certainly would increase the trust of the actors in those values. So pre-audit, more assessment before starting demolition, and more selective approach to the demolition, although keeping in mind a proportionality principle, including the quantity of relevant materials that is included in a certain building. So I would not necessarily support a generalization of those objectives. We need to remain proportionate also in terms of costs.
Mm-hmm. And to go from linear economy to circular economy means that we change the model. In your view, what is the right balance between the incentive by regulation, financial incentive from the public authorities, financial market equilibrium, and eventually control in this picture, control from the administration?
We'll need a combination of all these elements. The role of the regulatory approaches is to set the objectives, to set the targets, to indicate the direction. The role of the incentives is possibly to support the dynamic on the market that needs regulatory stability to really define and design their business plan in the medium and long term. The internal market is a very important instrument that we have at our disposal within the European Union. It's creating the condition for a bigger market of 500 million citizens, and actually it creates the condition indeed for competitiveness and job creation. The dynamic on the market is very important, and we rely on the market to create the good condition for the attaining of more circularity. The regulation is there to set the objectives and support the trend, but a very good connection between regulatory actors and industrial partners is essential.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that in circular economy we have basically, in terms of waste, two objectives. One is the preservation of resources, and the other one is climate change, excuse me. And how can it be reconciled in terms of financial terms and eventually carbon incentive, carbon objectives?
The material that we do not extract, we do not, we do not need to recover afterwards. It is recycling as a positive balance in terms of carbon footprint at all conditions. Of course, it depends very much from the methodology to calculate the carbon impact, carbon footprint of a process has to be assessed, made more standardized. This is the work we've been doing in the project levels, which is a very well-established project for the definition of sustainability criteria in buildings that actually provided a very stable methodology for the calculation of the carbon footprint of a certain building. The entry data will be provided by the new construction product regulation that also will make mandatory the declaration of the global potential indicator for all the construction products. So to provide a direct, entry point for the calculation of the life cycle of the building itself. So by creating this common technical language, these very standardized methodologies, we hope that the carbon footprint will become an indicator more and more, not only for the decision about the products to be decided, but also for the design of the building themselves, and then for the to consider as a part of the design also the final stage, so that the deconstruction also is considered in the overall evaluation about the carbon footprint of the building.
In terms of harmonization, how do you see the traceability? Because we speak about hundreds of tons of material, but do we know really what is behind these figures, and are they consistent from one member state to another one? How do you plan to tackle this?
This is a very good question. Actually, we can have the best European regulatory approaches, but if then the implementation is not well established, well monitored, and implemented at the national level, it remains a theoretical framework. We need really the support to the national authorities to ensure that the EU regulations are then implemented on the ground, and all different elements of that regulations are actually implemented across Europe in a very similar way. Market surveillance is not a very sexy activities in member states, and resources have been declining a bit everywhere in all member states. But actually, I think it is also common interest to reinforce those activities so that actually the objective and the regulatory approaches become real, and they do concretize indeed in the daily work.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of recycling, what is the objective, in your opinion, between reuse, recycling, revalorization? Where are the priorities? Are there priorities, or is it a mix of everything?
The priority is set into the Waste Framework Directive, and it goes first from reuse, then to recycling, and finally only to as energy recovery. Landfilling even not appear into the prioritization, into the priority list altogether. However, it is important to have an informed decisions about which best is the final approach to a certain product in particular when is a complex product as a building. We need the information I was referring to before, the information about the quality of the construction product, about the building itself. It is crucial actually to allow an informed decision. And the life cycle approach is essential because we don't want to move the environmental impact from one point to the next one into the life cycle. We don't want to save material to use energy on the other side or the other way around. We need a very balanced and proportionate approach, including a sound methodology to actually assess what the best option is. So, although of course keeping it very clear in mind the priority setting, well-informed and educated decisions are of crucial importance.
Mm-hmm. And in this picture, where do you see the obstacle for the demolition and recycling industry? What is your vision about this industry? Is it a virtuous one, a non-virtuous one? How could we go more into this circular economy process?
Well, the construction ecosystem altogether has been identified as one of the major construction ecosystem to actually move towards a more circular economy. Therefore, the role of an industry that actually is essential to give values, to transform, to give values to the waste is of essential nature. The demolition association, the demolition industries is the enabler, is the link between the end of life of a building and the beginning of the cycle, the construction process. So it's a very essential actor. We see, and I was happy to listen today to the different intervention at the conference, that there is a lot of work ongoing in these industries. Also from an innovation point of view, there are many new technologies around the table, a much larger use of digital information. And so it is a moment of transformation for the industry. I believe in the right direction because it's becoming more and more aware of the potential that exists also in this market, in creating a new market for that material. So it is a good dialogue, the one we're having with the European Demolition Association. I think we should continue. We're now in the middle of what we call the transition pathways. So it's an open dialogue that we're having with all industrial actors that participate into the construction ecosystem, with the view indeed to identify the potentialities and the challenges, identify the areas where there is more need for action, either from a European level, from a national level, or from an industrial level. In this sense, the demolition industry is a very important player, and I look forward to get your contribution in the dialogue. Next opportunity will be into the coming months, the finalization of the transition pathways. So looking forward to continue working with you.
Of course, we are willing to work, and of course it is crucial for us. But to go into more details, how can we do to help you in what you have to do? Do you expect proposal from us? Do you expect reaction on your text? What
Yes.
would you like from EDA? How could EDA help you more? And of course, in the perspective of our industry.
Yes, I do expect inputs from your association. I think the first appointment will be with the revision of the construction demolition protocol This has been a very successful experience that we've done together in 2015, 2016. The guidance today are a very important document indeed to build up the trust of the sectors into the recycling, into the, let's say, result of recycling processes in the construction demolition waste areas. They are now a bit old, so we need to revise those guidance, and I count on the European Demolition Association as a partner to look into this guidance. We'll have to look at it in particular under two angles, to extend the guidance to renovations, to partial demolition that would result from the renovation wave. And the second angle is to look more on how to the decontamination stage and the, let's say, the action related to the identification of dangerous substances into waste streams. A second, sorry,
yeah,
more
please.
for you. I need more for you. So I need also your input into the process for the finalization of the construction product regulation. The adoption was the end of March. Now the feedback time is still open until the 15th of July, and I would expect also the recyclers actually to be part of that conversation. Although the construction products may seem a bit of a niche market for you, actually I believe that in the future they may become a more important sectors for your investment, in particular creating a demand side. And I think you should look at the process to see how that you can the recycling, but also the reuse and the remanufacturing of construction product in the future may become more efficient. A final process on which I also need you is the transition pathways that I mentioned before, the finalization of the exercises foreseen before the end of this year. And you, as said before, we cannot make it the European built environment more sustainable without a full involvement of the demolition industry.
And to finish, what would you like to say to demolishers or recycling companies who expect opportunities from circular economy, but that at the same time are clearly afraid of changes, what might happen? How could we give some hope, perspective to all these companies and to all these professionals?
Well, I think we have, first of all, we have not much choice. We have a sort of moral obligation to look in a more reasonable way to the use of the natural resource we have, but also the movement and the movement towards a more circular economy is also an opportunity to modernize and to create new markets and new opportunities. It's also quite work-intensive area, so this could also result potentially more job creation. And don't forget that we are really the pioneer on the global market. So also in terms of first movers and in terms of exporting technologies, know-how, we do have an incredible potential. So testing modernizing our EU industry could also create a bigger opportunity in the rest of the world, which is looking at the European experience with a lot of interest. So jump on the circular economy project, and please do work with us for that in the future.
And on our part, in order to dialogue also, I please accept these two documents, one being the link for our guide on circular economy, so you will know about our perspective, and there another guide on hazardous waste that a work that has been done over the last 2 years.
Thank you very much. I will make a good use of those materials.
Mrs. Raffaelli, thank you very much. You have demonstrated your willingness to dialogue, being here during our convention, presenting circular economy, accepting to have this interview, and I look forward that we could continue this dialogue. Thank you very much, Mrs. Raffaelli.
Thank you very much to you.